I never thought a simple office job would change the entire course of my life. At 36, I had everything I ever prayed for: an amazing husband named Daniel, a stable marriage of 10 years, 2 kids who were the light of our lives, and a beautiful home in the suburbs of Charlotte. We weren't rich, but we were content. Life was structured, predictable, safe. I had worked in marketing before having kids, but once my youngest started kindergarten, I decided it was time to step back into the workforce. Not for the money, but for myself. I missed feeling like I mattered outside the home. That's when I met him, Jackson Reed. My boss. He was the CEO of a boutique consulting firm, and from the outside, everything about him screamed control and charisma. Tall, sharply dressed, mid-40s, with steel blue eyes that seemed to look straight through people. He didn't speak much in meetings unless he had something critical to say, and when he did, everyone listened, myself included. During my first interview, he was polite but distant. My direct supervisor was someone else, so our interactions were minimal at first. But over time, that changed. At first, it was little things. A good job emailed directly from him when I landed a difficult campaign. A nod in the hallway. Then it progressed. He'd stop by my office, ask how my weekend was, ask about my kids. I thought he was just being kind, professional. I never assumed it meant anything else. Until the day he said something that made me freeze. "I bet your husband's a lucky man," he said after a particularly intense pitch presentation. I laughed awkwardly, thinking he was just complimenting the work. "Oh," I said, smiling politely. "Thank you. He's amazing. We've been married for 10 years. He looked at me for a moment and then said quietly, "That long, huh? Still feel like a fairy tale." It was the way he said it, not rude, not mocking, but something else I couldn't put my finger on. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that I was overthinking. Weeks went by, then months, and I became his go-to for campaigns, even when others were more experienced. I told Daniel about it, how proud I was that my boss saw my potential. Daniel supported me as always. He'd make dinner when I worked late, took care of the kids when I traveled to pitch with Jackson. He trusted me. That trust haunts me even now. The shift happened during a business trip to Dallas. We were presenting to a big client and staying at a high-end hotel for 2 nights. Everything went smoothly until that last evening. The team had dinner together. Then slowly, everyone trickled out. I had 1 glass of wine. He had 2. He asked if I wanted to walk back to the hotel together. I agreed. Why wouldn't I? It was a public street, well lit, and I thought I knew who he was. When we got to the hotel lobby, he paused. "Do you want to grab one more drink? Just us? Celebrate the win." I hesitated. I probably should call it a night. I promised Daniel I'd FaceTime the kids. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. He must miss you." I nodded and turned to head toward the elevator, but he caught my arm, gently but firmly. "You know," he said, "you're different from the others. I've worked with a lot of talented people, but there's something about you." I tried to smile and brush it off. "I'm just doing my job." "That's not what I mean." He stepped closer. "I know you're married. I know you've told me, but I can't help how I feel." I froze. "Jackson," I said, firm but polite. "I respect you. And my husband. This can't happen." "I'm not asking for anything serious," he whispered. "Just tonight. Just this one time." My heart pounded. I stepped back. "No. I told you. I'm married." His face changed. The charm slipped for a second, and something colder replaced it. But then he nodded slowly. "Okay. I respect that." I thought it was over. I went up to my room, locked the door, FaceTimed Daniel and the kids like nothing happened. I didn't tell him. I didn't want to worry him over something I'd shut down. I should have told him. I see that now. An hour later, someone knocked on my door. I peeked through the peephole. It was Jackson. I didn't open it. I froze. My stomach twisted. He knocked again, then said softly, "I'm sorry. I just want to talk." I didn't answer. I waited until I heard his footsteps leave. The next day, he acted like nothing had happened. Not a single mention of the night before. The flight home was quiet. I felt like I was losing my mind. But back at the office, things shifted. My projects were reassigned. I was excluded from meetings I once led. My name was left off emails. When I asked my supervisor about it, she looked uncomfortable. Jackson said you might be taking a step back for family reasons. I was furious. I confronted him in his office. Why are you sidelining me? He leaned back in his chair, completely composed. I thought you needed some space. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. Don't punish me because I didn't say yes to you. He looked at me coldly. No one's being punished. But be careful with accusations like that. It could affect your reputation. That's when I realized he wasn't just being inappropriate. He was dangerous. Strategic. He knew what he was doing. And he thought I'd stay quiet. I went home that night and broke down. Daniel held me while I cried, and I finally told him everything. Every word Jackson had said. Every look. Every shift in behavior. Daniel didn't get angry with me. He didn't accuse me. He got angry for me. You're not going back there, he said. We'll figure something out. But I didn't want to run. I wanted to fight. I contacted HR, even though part of me feared they wouldn't believe me. But I had emails, messages, timeline records. The HR rep, Laura, was kind. She said she'd investigate, but her tone suggested this wasn't the first time something like this had come up. The next weeks were tense. Jackson stopped talking to me altogether. But I heard whispers. Other women who had worked late. Transfer departments. Quiet resignations. Then came the day I was called back into HR. Laura looked at me seriously and said, "We've opened a formal investigation. You're not the only one. But we need your statement on record." I gave it. In detail. Weeks later, Jackson resigned. No public reason. Just a vague company-wide email about new opportunities. People speculated. I stayed quiet. But inside I knew. I stayed with the company for another year. I rebuilt my professional identity. I mentored younger women and told them to always trust their instincts. I made sure the culture shifted. My supervisor quietly thanked me one day and said, "You did more than you know." But it came at a cost. The anxiety, the stress, the weight of keeping that secret, it almost broke me. Daniel and I went through therapy, not because he didn't trust me, but because I needed to trust myself again. To not feel dirty for something I didn't invite.
It took time.
Now, I tell my story because I know someone out there needs to hear it. You can be loyal, honest, and still find yourself caught in someone else's power game. But your worth is never tied to someone else's decision to cross a line. And silence only helps them. I told my boss I was married, but he still did it. And I still stood up. I still walked away. And I'm still standing.